Will Hufton III, Saginaw's own Crocodile Dundee.
I've never heard that one.
You've never heard that?
Not that one.
Well,
no.
like you're out like running around the Shiawassee Flats and like hanging out with wildlife. It's very Crocodile Dundee.
I guess you could say that, yeah. But I call it the Everglades of Michigan minus the poisonous snakes and alligators. The only thing that'll kill you out there is your own stupidity or someone else's. So, but yeah, that's one of the more flattering things I've been called. So
yeah.
Thank you.
So Johnny Panther Quest Adventure Trips. I went with you last week on my first adventure quest.
About time.
It's been like 4 years, 3 years in the making, 3 or 4 years in the making. And it was so, it was such a mistake to wait that long because it was a completely different side of Saginaw. And like you wouldn't expect walking down to the marina and hopping in a boat and in 15 minutes you're out in what feels like the Florida Everglades and you're seeing countless eagles. I don't know how many eagles we saw. 20? At least 20 just flying, like immature eagles and bald eagles and just flying all over the place, and 2 baby great horned owls sitting in their nest. And it was just really, really incredible. And one of the things that I loved about the trip, other than the nature, was you. Like you're sitting there, you can tell me a story about those cattails or about one time 25 years ago, and it just was a really, really incredible experience. And it's all just right here in the city of Saginaw. It was incredible.
I really appreciate that, and seeing those great horned owl babies. That's once in a lifetime. I hope you don't ever expect to see something like that again. But that's my mission. I grew up here in Saginaw. I went to college up in Grayling. I heard Sag nasty this, Sag nasty that, and I just told them, I says, you guys are looking in the wrong place. And so when we, for like 18 years, most of our demographic, our guests came from the AAA tour guide. And we're listed as a gem attraction for the state of Michigan. I'm an owner-operator with 3 boats. And so these people would come from all over the nation or the world to go on my little eco tour. And they were not impressed coming down 46 from 75. They're thinking, what are we getting ourselves into? And then they come to this old marina. And the guy that owns the place has forgotten more about where we're going than I'll ever know. And once 15 minutes from leaving the dock, they are pleasantly surprised. And that's my mission. I mean, to people smile, thank me, shake my hand. That's what life is all about. Like my stepdad Don told me, it's not how much money you make, but if you're happy where you live. And well, I'm happy where I live. And then somewhere along that line, I learned happy wife, happy life. So I've been working multiple jobs since 1994 when I started Johnny Panther Quest Adventure Trips. I know that's a mouthful, but there's a reason. There's a story behind everything. And I warn people, I have 3 stories for every bend in the river, and I'm not kidding. And when I'm talking too much, just tell me to shut up. You won't hurt my feelings. And I have ADD of the storytelling. We'll be talking about something, and I'll see a squirrel, and it'll be over. You're going to have to remind me what I was talking about if you want to hear the end of the story. So, anyway.
Well, you used the word surprise there, and one of the things I loved about our trip was when you spotted, there are 2 things about those baby great horned owls. Like one, I have no idea how you saw them. Because you were like, there's 2 baby great horned owls sitting in that nest. And I'm looking around going, where is he looking? Like, so you got those hawk eyes. But then 2, like you were just as excited about seeing that as I was. And you've been on the river for 30 years. Like, know it like the back of your hand. And when you saw those owls, you were so excited. You were so surprised. And you loved that moment too. And that helped make the trip for me, because it wasn't just some guy taking me around in a boat, just telling me kind of the same old stories. Like, it was very much an adventure for you as well. And I love that.
I have seen baby great horned owls in a nest now 2 times in my life. Wow. I mean, multiple times in one nest that was far away from where we saw the 2 last week. And we saw them in there for a few years, different babies.
Yeah.
And then they left the nest. And so that that was pay dirt. We wouldn't see them every trip, but to show people that was a once in a lifetime for a lot of people, including me. Yeah. So when you were out with me last week, that was a once in a lifetime. That is the most amazing view of baby owls I have ever had in my life. I have guests at downstate. They go to these metro parks and stuff, and they're putting up all kinds of stuff. And they show up with their big glass on my boat. This set of ladies, they come out every year a couple times. They've got big glass, 400s, 800s, whiz-bang gear. And honest and truly, I believe that the bigger the glass you have, the more far away the wildlife is. So it's like a ratio. I gotta tell you, it's like 90% of the time, the bigger the glass you bring, the farther away it is. So I don't know what it is, but
interesting.
It is. It's true. But
they sense the long lens coming.
I tell people I'm very easily excited, and obviously you witnessed that, and that was, I mean, every minute. It's always different out there, and for me, 5 hours goes by in 5 minutes, And so when people want to go back early, I'm like, really? Do you really? You want to get back before the sunset? Really? Okay. I'll give them what they asked for, not what I think they want.
Yeah, yeah. Before we get into the thick of this conversation, because we're going to go down every little rabbit hole and every little story, maybe give me a 101 of what exactly an adventure trip is.
Okay, well, Johnny Panther Quest Adventure Trips, first of all, is named after an old hokey Ricardo Montalban B-movie. He played a Florida Everglades Indian, running barefoot through the swamps, busting poachers in the Everglades. And in this, most of your listeners probably don't even know who he is, but back when he was young, he was kind of this Latin stud. And in one scene, he had a black leather vest on, no shirt, and a black felt hat, and he goes, "They call me Johnny Panther." And it was so hokey. Well, my teammates from Team Garage, we would go out and we would go out in the swamp in this little bitty boat, and we would carry the boat through the woods to other rivers, and that was our cross training. Instead of running down the road and training for racing dirt bikes, we would carry the boat through the woods or run through the woods or climb trees, get our hearts pounding, and that was true Johnny Panthering. If you didn't, and Johnny Panthering back then was a verb, it wasn't a business. Let's go Johnny Panthering, that's like means running through the swamp.
Yeah.
So when I started this business back in 94, I thought I would get guests that would actually want to help me carry the boat through the woods.
They
to
wanted
the rivers.
Johnny Panther.
Yeah. Do you know how many times that's happened in 30 years?
Probably zero.
Less than 5. So what people can expect nowadays is, and I'm getting old now too, so you're going to have to carry the boat, but all my tours are by reservation. My bread and butter is through what I call the Everglades of Michigan, which is the Shiawassee Flats, which is composed of the Shiawassee National Wildlife Refuge, 9,000 some acres, and the Shiawassee State Game Area, another 9,000 acres.
Wow.
And I have very technical names for my tours: the wide part, the narrow part, the cheap trip, and the dam trip. And you were on the wide part. And it's wide. I call it the wide part for obvious reasons, but people make a reservation. We run mornings, middays, and afternoons. I take you out for at least 3 hours. Longer, I will take you basically as long as the water and your desire allows.
Yeah.
So
how many people can go out at a time?
Anywhere from 1 to 10.
Okay.
And I'm the world's worst salesman, but I'll tell you the water's low this year, and less is better than more. If we could take my smaller boat, it goes further than the big boat. The big boat's badass, custom built. Can I say that? I don't know.
Yeah, you can say that.
It's custom built, 22 feet long, 8 feet wide. It took 10 years of dreaming and 2 years of pleading to get built.
Oh, wow.
And it's like a Cadillac. But the small boat, it's got cushions and backrest, kind of envision a gondola ride through the Everglades.
Yeah.
Only I don't sing. That would be harassing the wildlife. So try to give you information on the way out: history, ecology, wildlife, lucky to be alive stories. And on the way back, we'll be quiet and try to see some stuff. And that's what I do is if some of the eagles, I have their talons taped to the branch so they can't fly, but I'm kidding. But there's certain hangouts.
You got to make your money.
There's certain places that I see stuff, and I do most of my learning fall through spring because you can see the nests, you can see what's changing.
Yeah.
And I don't have many guests that want to put a snowmobile suit on and go for a boat ride, but that's the best time. So we are at the end of spring. Things are greening up. In another couple of weeks, all the nests, most of them will be invisible. I can tell you where they're at, but you're not going to be able to see them.
Yeah.
So people come out, bring a cooler full of whatever you want. I don't care if it's water or wine. Picnic baskets, cameras, binoculars, highly recommended. The further we go into the Shiawassee Flats, the prettier it gets. The most dangerous part of the trip is getting in and out of the boat. And unfortunately, there's no restrooms out there. So if we do get out there and there's a natural emergency, we have to find some place high and dry with a big tree. So that's where the adventure comes in, is getting on and off the boat without getting wet.
I would, for the folks that are watching or listening, I would suggest, like, if you've got a pair of binoculars or you can borrow one, a pair, I would 100% bring those. Like, if you're not a photographer and you're not looking at wildlife through a lens, it definitely worth grabbing a pair, even if they're cheap ones, just like, because you're gonna see eagles flying all over the place. You're gonna see deer. We saw a bunch of deer swimming across the river at one point. You're gonna want to see that stuff. So
absolutely,
bring those binoculars. And
I do have a loaner pair, but they're not kid friendly. Yeah. But when I take people out, I'm a really low tech guy. My depth gauge is a paddle, and you saw that. Yeah. And so if it's deeper than the paddle, it doesn't matter. But I really only have 3 rules when I take people out, and that's leave it better than what you found it, no boom boxes, and once water comes in the side of the boat, you're cut off. Pretty much as long as you're not harassing the wildlife or littering, we're going to do the full shot. And what happens in the boat stays in the boat. It's like a mini Las Vegas. I'm so thankful growing up here in Saginaw that there wasn't all these cameras and stuff. Oh my goodness, all the skateboard. We weren't bad people, but we weren't the brightest crayons in the box either.
Yeah. You mentioned that you grew up skateboarding in the parking lot right outside.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I mean, hours and hours. So I'm like having these flashbacks waiting to visit with you. I mean, I brought my skateboard with me. I'm gonna get it out and see how old I am.
I love it. Yeah. What was the best trick that you could pull?
Oh, I could do a handstand from here to.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, yeah. My shoulders are all tore up now from racing dirt bikes, but that's my goal this year, is to get back on my hands. I could go all the way across the parking lot or down the hills, and we'd post a guy at the intersection. As long as there's no cars coming, we go right across the intersection. And I wasn't the best or by any stretch. I had a buddy who was a diver or a swimmer in school, and I could get up on my hands, but I had to run and do it. Where my buddy, he could actually get up on his hands from just standing on the board rolling. But oh my gosh, we had a skateboard club called Bad Company, all 3 of us. We bought T-shirts from Ziggurats with the Bad Company logo on there, and all 3 of us Bad Company skaters, and we weren't really bad.
Awesome. How'd you get into dirt bikes? Because you were serious.
I was serious. I'm addicted to adrenaline, and that's part of where Johnny Panthering came from, is because we'd go out in the swamp, and if we didn't get our hearts pounding, it wasn't Johnny Panther. But I started riding a mini bike and progressed up, and me and my stepbrother had a pretty big rivalry, and I'd go trail riding occasionally. We got going so fast through the trails, you hit a deer or a dune buggy or a quad, and I used to ride at a place called the Mounds down in Mount Morris. It's still open, and it was so dangerous. People get killed there all the time. People go in the wrong direction, and I thought, racing is a lot safer. Everybody's going the same direction. So I started racing in 78, and this guy, oh gosh, this gal lived across the street from us, and she looked pretty damn good in a bikini. And one day I saw dirt bikes in her driveway with numbers on them, and I says, "Does your boyfriend race?" And she says, "Yeah." I says, "Well, do you think he'd take me?" And she says, "I don't know. You have to ask him." And his name was Dave Curry. His parents owned Curry's Motel. I probably shouldn't even be saying this name. Half the people now won't go out with me. But he took me under his wing, and he taught me everything I know about wrenching and racing. And from 78 to 81, and 81, I took the state championship. And instead of going to the Air Force Academy and becoming a fighter pilot, which was always a dream, I was going to make $1 million a year racing motorcycles. Well, unfortunately, the only people that made $1 million were the hospitals, and all I got to show for it is scars and stories. So I finally went to college, got a degree in aviation maintenance technology, and I figured I'd become an airline mechanic and work my way into the pilot's seat. I'd do it the hard way. And once I got into the industry, I was working for a commuter down in Flint, and co-pilots making less than $200 a week living on food stamps. And I'm like, man, I don't want to go to that. And a lot of the pilots had AIDS, aviation-induced divorce syndrome, because they're always gone. You hear about it. They're gone from 5 a.m. till 11:30, and then they're in a hotel, and then they go and do it again. Glorified bus drivers. And I didn't fit the personality profile either. I would probably make a good bush pilot or fighter pilot because I'm aggressive and like challenges.
Yeah.
Commercial pilots, it's more about waiting your turn and being relaxed. And my nickname's Laid Back Lenny, but I can be Uptight Wilfred in a heartbeat. So the end.
Sorry, folks, we're in a 3-hour delay.
Yeah. So the end was literally written on the bathroom wall in pencil at our maintenance base down in Flint. The exact closing date, February 28th, 1994, on the bathroom wall 5 years before they shut us down.
Really?
And management denied it. And finally, the last year, they confirmed we were shutting down. They were moving the operation to Illinois. And I thought, what am I going to do? I don't want to go back to college. I don't want to follow the airline. I love people. I love the outdoors. And my stepdad, his name was Don, and he's the reason I have a guide service. In the old days, I'd say, hey, Don, you want to go Johnny Pantherin? And he'd say, cat got an ass. And away we'd go in this little bitty 14-foot boat with a 3-horse Johnson on it. And so I decided I was going to turn it into a business. I was going to show people the good side of Saginaw and Flint by boat. And I had people, there's a good side? And I'm like, absolutely. There's 18,000 acres, 32 square miles of good side out here in Saginaw.
Wow.
And so I thought within 5 years I'd be killing it, franchising it all over the nation, have my own clothing line. Well, you've seen my clothing line, the extent of it. I've got one T-shirt. And I haven't franchised it once, and I still have to work another job or two because I also learned along the line, happy wife, happy life. And every year I tell her, honey, this is going to be the year. And she's not impressed. But I'll tell you, she did share your Facebook post. That's the first Johnny Panther thing she shared in friggin' years.
Thanks, wife.
I love you, man. I did. I thanked her for it. I mean, she never shares it. She works at this huge credit union, hundreds of employees, and I'm thinking great team building, corporate outings.
Yeah.
99% of them don't know that what I do.
Come on.
And a few years ago, I had one of her coworkers on the boat on a tour. It was a big group. And luckily, she identified herself and where she worked before I was told any inappropriate stories.
What's your wife's name?
Shelly.
Yeah. Shelly, get your people on a boat.
Yeah. So I've been trying forever to crack that nut. And I don't, that girl that I had out, I think she's the only one that I've ever had out from that credit union.
Oh, really?
Oh, well.
Well, that's about to change. Shelly's going to get her entire credit union on the boat. So you started this business in 94. We're in your 30th year of Johnny Panther. Tell me about like what maybe like a 101 of the Shiawassee Refuge, because I mean you're saying things like 32 square miles, like 9,000 acres, like 18,000 acres, and I think most people in the city have no idea that like that massive amount of nature is like that way, like 10 minutes that way. So tell me a little bit about the flats, about the refuge.
Well, we should probably end this podcast right now because it's a double-edged sword. Most all the locals I know that know about this place, we want to keep it our own secret. It's like our own backyard. It's either our church or our playground. Specifics, it is one of the few watersheds in the world that flow in a northerly direction. They call it the Flats because there's only 2 feet of vertical drop from St. Charles to Saginaw Bay, so it's very susceptible to wind direction.
Oh, wow.
The level of Saginaw Bay is what dictates how high the water is out there. It's part of and I'm rounding down on everything. It's part of the largest watershed in the state of Michigan. It drains over 7,000 square miles. And it's the Shiawassee Flats is one of the largest wildlife habitats in the Lower Peninsula, one of the largest habitats for bald eagles in the state. It has come a long ways just in my life. To leave the Dale Carnegie zone, talk about ecology. I grew up here in Saginaw. The Saginaw River and the Tittabawassee didn't freeze till the late 70s, early 80s. There's a little company 15 miles upstream on the Tittabawassee. I think you know who they are. Huge. But it was, let me just say that it was standard operating procedure. Most all the industry built along the rivers for 2 reasons. One is they could get their materials in and their goods out, and 2, they could pipe their effluent or the nasty stuff into the water. They used them like garbage dumps. So it has come so far just in my lifetime. When the rivers started freezing in the late 70s, early 80s, we would put sheet metal screws in the tires of our dirt bikes and ride on the ice up the rivers. Pretty stupid, but a lot of fun. Anyways, it is an amazing, it's the Shiawassee National Wildlife Refuge is world famous for its different bird species, over 280 bird species, not all at once, but in different times of the year. It's just growing up, it's been an awesome escape. And the one thing Michigan was just a big swamp back in the old days, and all our water flowed clear because all these swamps act like kidneys or capacitors storing the water's energy. And after the timber was gone, and a lot of people don't know this, but Michigan and Saginaw in particular was worse than the wild, wild west back in the lumbering era. All it was lumberjacks and whorehouses. Well, once the timber was gone, they spent years ditching, diking, dredging, and draining the state to get roads and railroads in, and they turned a lot of our rivers into glorified ditches. They channelized them, put big dikes on either side, and it prevents the water from spreading out. So it's been a big controversy for years when we had that big flood in '86 and a lot of the dikes got washed out and they rebuilt. Should we let it go to natural? Should we rebuild them? They rebuilt them. And then 2013, we had the big event, washed a lot of them out again. They rebuilt them. So it doesn't take a whole lot of manipulation by man to screw up a whole bunch of stuff, in my opinion. But they're trying. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, I guess. But the flats is very shallow. And all that lumbering that went on previous, and the wildlife refuge was established in the early 1950s. So there was nothing left here. They'd hunted everything out. They started out with 50 Canada geese that they brought in. They were rare.
Really?
And out of those 50 Canada geese, 25 were lost in a flood. Those 25 Canada geese reestablished one of the largest flyways in the state. And things have changed since 2013 for me was the year of drama. That's when things really started taking a turn environmentally with the climate and things like that. But the flying patterns and the migrations have changed dramatically since 13, and they continue to change. It's different every year. And for me, every single boat ride is different. I have different people on the boat. There's different weather. There's different water. One trip you can hear a pin drop, and the next trip it's so noisy it's just like it's like a symphony. Yeah. So people say, if you want to hear music, I'll just quit talking and shut the motor off.
What do you think happened in 2013? Like, why 2013? Why was that such a pivotal?
Well, it was. It started out, and so in the old days, it would flood out here every spring with a thaw. And my analogy was flushing the toilet. So when you come out with me, I've got really polished nomenclature. Team Garage, the name of our race team, they didn't understand 3-syllable words. They made a lot of fun of me, so I had to dumb stuff down a little bit, and I've lost a lot of it. But anyway, it was like flushing the toilet every spring with the thaw and the floods. And so over the years, now the floods come May, June, July, August, September, and it's really hard on the wildlife. We have really weak winters. Well, 13, longest, highest duration of water I've ever seen. That came late May, early June. And I sent you that video. I don't know if you got a chance to see it or not, but you saw the marinos underwater. Yeah. Then that was followed by the longest duration of low water. And sometimes no water in the ramp where we launched. And when the water is low like that, you see what you've been running over your whole life. I tell people on my safety briefing, I've hit everything out here at least twice, and we'll probably hit it a third time today. And I'm not lying. It's true. So there are so many pilings out there in the water from the lumbering era. There's a lot of stuff to tear your equipment up. I go through about 3 propellers per year per boat hitting stuff. And most of it's wood. There's no stone out there. All of that's under the sediment.
And that's all remnant from the lumber era, right?
Yeah. And I'd love to see that, how they drove those pilings in and stuff. A few years ago, I had a guy on a boat. He was an excavator out in Maryland, mover and shaker. He and a couple partners had a 60-foot motor yacht, and he knew the kind of equipment they used to dredge out there. And there's so much history. All I really know is seat of the pants stuff that I've learned from my guests. A French visionary came through there in the 1830s named Alexis de Tocqueville, wrote a book called Democracy in America. And in chapter 22, this is what I'm hearing from my guests. I didn't read the book. It's really thick. But in chapter 22, he describes a great swamp with mosquitoes the size of small birds. Well, that's right. Take people. And so I'm getting off topic here, but I'll come back to it if you remind me. But anyways, so my first couple years in business, we would launch from the narrow part. And the mosquitoes were so bad, I was sneaking bug spray in through people's windows in their cars before they got out, recommending hooded sweatshirts in July. Guess what? A lot of those people never came back. Yeah. So back to 13, and they spray out there now for mosquitoes, and you can still hear the din of mosquitoes come up in the evening, but it's not like it used to be. But anyways, that winter of 13, we had a really hard winter, and over 90% of the Great Lakes froze, and the water came back. most of our water level is dictated by how much water evaporates out of the Great Lakes. It didn't evaporate that year. The water came back. So for 5 years, the docks were underwater at the marina. It was very challenging to get people in and out of the boat. And so people say, Will, when's the best time to go Johnny Panthering? I say, when you're breathing, the alternative's not so good. The second best time is when the water's high. Well, the water was high since 14, and sadly now it's on its way out. It's dropping like a rock. I did a recon mission in March, and I had August water levels. And it's really, so it's hard for me to get my 16-footer up to do the standard 3-hour tour. You saw how shallow it was. I had to sit up on the bow just to get us balanced out to get in there.
Yeah.
And so 13 was a tipping point, and since 14, we haven't had a winter like that. And so the water's been dropping every year. And when I go up north to visit my mom in Greenbush, I walk out to the beach and look at Lake Huron, and I can see what kind of year I'm going to have out in the swamp by how much water there is in Lake Huron.
Oh, wow. Wild.
It is.
You tell me about the flood. So in 2020, you had Sanford dams broke, all this flooding going out, and for a couple days, people were like, "Oh, it's going to hit the city of Saginaw hard," and everybody, "Oh, we got to prepare." And unfortunately, there were some homes that were flooded. But I remember being in downtown and looking at the river, like when it was going to be the highest, and it was, I don't want to say like just a little blip, but that's pretty much what it felt like. And tell me why that happened.
Okay. Shoot, there's so much to this story that could take all day, but why it happened, first of all, when those 2 dams failed, the cards were kind of stacked against us because the wind was out of the north. And with a strong wind out of the north, it blows the water from the bay back up in here. So it impeded all that water from Sanford Lake and Wixom Lake from getting washed out of the bay. The thing that saved Saginaw was the Shiawassee Flats. That water actually backed up into the flats. That's 18,000 acres of rivers, marshes, and bayous. So we actually went out the day after the dams failed. My nickname is Laid Back Lenny, but Will sounds much more professional. And my arch rival's nickname is Too Fast because he was too fast for Team Garage. And he's the reason I won a state championship. We ride 2-3 times a week out at a old park called Riverside Park along the Shiawassee, and we take turns knocking each other down. But anyways, so that water backed up into the flats. And another thing, with all this system of dikes out there, and so if you guys get bored, Google Earth the Shiawassee Flats. It's southwest of Saginaw, and look at the satellite images, and you'll see the labyrinth of waterways and the dike systems. So like Mel Turner, the guy that owns Saginaw Marina, and I could tell you a few stories like this, but he lives out on Swan Creek Road or near there, and he was standing on his front porch watching the water come up his steps. And it almost made it to his living room, and it started going down. And what happened is one of the dikes failed out in the refuge or the state game area or adjacent to it, and the water started flooding the farm fields. And we saw a breach in the dike on the Cass River, and the farmer was out there watching. And it sounded like not like Niagara Falls, but there was a roar.
That dike failing flooded the farm fields around my brother's house.
Right.
Because he lives right off of Yvonne Road. And he was out there. He saved this little baby deer that was like trapped in this farm field and trying to swim. He swam out there and got it.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was because the dike failed?
Yeah. So, but a lot of the water went up there. So like we got halfway to say, after we actually went all the way up Mystigate Creek. There's a dam up there in New Lothrop. We made it all the way, once-in-a-lifetime boat ride. I've got a video. I've got over 100 crappy videos of beautiful scenery on YouTube. So if you can't sleep at night, go to our YouTube page. It's under Mr. Laidback Lenny. And in the summer, it's all Johnny Panther stuff. And in the winter, it's all motorcycles on ice stuff. I'm still an adventurer.
Awesome.
But sadly, more people watch my motorcycle videos than the stuff I'm trying to make money on.
Come on, people.
So anyways, we got a video from that day we went out in the boat. And when we got up to the second hay bridge on the Bad River, the water was, all you could see of the bridge was the guardrail. And the water was still flowing backwards up into St. Charles. And it does that with the wind too. But there was so much water out there, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And Too Fast, he's an OG Johnny Panther guy. He's been doing it since its inception. And he was nervous. He said, gee, Len, maybe we should wait a day, And I said, no, dude, we got to go today. And we launched our boat up on Lee Street. The marina was underwater. And we went all the way to his house where he lives, and this wasn't because of the dams failing, but because of the rain event we had that led to all that stuff.
Yeah.
Where he lives, that creek normally flows 1 to 3 feet deep below the dam. It was 12 feet deep and raging. And there's an image on that video of the water behind the dam. It's not cresting over the dam, but it's close. And within 24 hours, that water dropped at least 20 feet. So if we waited one day, we never would have made it.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, I've got goosebumps talking about it, because that's why we call them adventure trips. And I tell people, if you're flexible, wait till we had a buttload of rain, and then let's go for a boat ride, because then it's we can go places we normally can't get to.
Yeah.
It's very dramatic, and because the water is so high and it's so flat, I mean, it's really hard on the wildlife, unfortunately. In the old days, it'd flood every spring, but now with it flooding, May, June, July, the ducks are having their babies, the does are dropping their fawns. The only high ground is the dikes. So the wildlife gets concentrated on the high ground, and there's very little of it. So high ground or behind the dikes is the only safe zones.
Oh, wow. Is it, you mentioned, like, people ask you all the time, like, when is the best time to go Johnny Panthering, and like whenever you're breathing? Does it vary? Does the experience vary from, like, if you go in the morning versus afternoon versus evening, or how does it vary from, like, spring to summer to fall? Kind of tell me that.
Okay. Well, my favorite time is the spring. The best time to go is today. We're going out when we get done here.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll still see the baby.
Yeah.
Baby out.
And I'm going to tell you people, like, that's absolutely the right answer, because when we went out, it was stupidely cold. It was really, really cold. Still had a blast. So, like, if you don't consider yourself outdoorsy and you don't know if you can hack an adventure trip, you absolutely can.
It's funny, because the day we went out tied for the coldest day on record.
Did it really?
I mean, here I've been trying to get you out for 4 days, and you picked the friggin' tied with the coldest day on record. So in the spring, the trees are in bud, so it looks like fall. There's no bugs. The water might be high. The migrations are going on. You can see the nests, and there's no hunters. Yeah. So that's my favorite time to go. You've heard of the Mile High Club?
Yeah.
I do the Mile In Club. I take people a mile in, drop them off in the middle of nowhere for an hour or so, and pick them back up. And I got a few stories for that. But anyway,
I think we called that the secret menu item.
Yeah.
Johnny Panther Quest adventure trips.
If you don't know what it is, you don't want to know. Yeah. And so spring is my favorite. Then we get into summer. Then we get those balmy summer days, and you get out in the swamp, and it's 5 to 10 degrees cooler than in the city. It looks like an enchanted forest. Everything is green. There's pollen on the water. Everything is green, and it's lush, and it's like a safari. I finally saw the dang movie in its entirety, The African Queen, and I mean, what a great movie. That's true Johnny Panthering right there. We used to drag the boat and carry the boat, and I am hoping that I'll get a younger demographic where people, because it's here now again, we have no water again. Yeah. We're going to have to push, pull, and drag the boat to get to some really cool stuff. So hopefully I get some people that are looking for a little aerobic exercise.
Hey, people, let's fulfill Will's lifelong dream of you carrying his boat on a Johnny Panther trip. So
I'll help. So that's summer, and I go out. I've got this one place out in the state game area, and I should tell you that the Shiawassee National Wildlife Refuge is very stringent. You're restricted to designated trails only. And for those that don't want to pay me the big bucks to go out and hear my side of it, you can do the wildlife drives through the Shiawassee National Wildlife Refuge. It's a 6-mile self-guided loop. You're going to see stuff that I can't show you, and it's free. So that's an option. But the state game area, the Shiawassee State Game Area, is much more liberal. Remember when liberal was not a swear word? I like liberal people, open-minded people, Yeah. Anyways, free thinkers. But in the state game area, you can pretty much go wherever you want as long as it's not hunting season. So if you were to entertain the Mile In Club, that would be a great place to go. And just for the record, you think it was cold when you went out, the first paying couple I took out for the Mile In Club, I didn't know that's what it was for, but they asked about it. And anyways, it was New Year's Eve day. We had to literally break ice to get out of the channel. And I found a really nice spot, secluded and out of the wind, and gave them some cushions and blankets, and I dropped them off, and I headed up the river a mile or so, climbed a tree, and watched a deer run by. And when I went back down to pick them up, they were rosy-cheeked and happy, and like they'd had a nice conversation. But so
Do you run like a Valentine's Day special for this?
I do not, but
Maybe
that's a great idea.
Yeah, you're missing a gold mine here, I think.
Oh gosh, dude, I've had some very interesting suggestions for options, and I don't think I want to bring them up to the public, but that's it. I've done 2 trips that are memorable for Valentine's Day. One of them, a couple called me and they were going to stay at the Montague Inn because I used to take people in and out of their backyard. I still can, but anyway, I says, I'd love to take you, but it's usually frozen. And I used to announce the National Ice Race Championships, and it happened to fall on Valentine's weekend. Well, as luck would have it, heat wave, canceled the National, the frigging river opened up, so I called those people back. I says, hey, you still want to go? And they said, yes. Well, the water was so high, excuse me, I had to have him get in the back of my pickup truck and drive him through the parking lot of the marina because it was underwater, and I took him out, and it was an excellent day. And the only other big memories, I took old Too Fast, his brother, and his son out on Valentine's Day, and again, the marina was underwater. And a lot of times when there's places still frozen out there, and the water will be flowing through the woods, but not in the river channel, and we literally had to drive the boat through the woods to get around the ice jams.
Oh, wow.
And I could go on. That's another long story I could elaborate, but we had a heck of a boat ride, but the kid in the boat ate everything, all the food, and we were still way out there. And his dad was freaking, we got to get back. We got all this ice to go through and yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Well, I took him on a different loop. There's loops you can do out there. You can go from river to river. And they hadn't been out there since it was neutered. Somebody in their infinite wisdom took every tree, stump, twig, weed, and log out of the original channel, the Flint River, in the name of flood control. And I actually got these OG Johnny Panther guys lost. And we got to get back. We got all that ice to go through. I said, no, we don't. We're going to go people over. They didn't know where they were until we came out of mouth of Spalding Drain. They were lost. And that's, in a nutshell, that's my mission with every group, is to take them out and get them friggin' lost.
There was a moment where we were out there, and I used to canoe in that area, and so some of the things that I saw were familiar. And then we kind of ducked into this one kind of narrow kind of cut, and we turned around, and I was like, "Oh, okay, now I officially don't know where I am."
That's
and that was fun.
I think it's fun. In the old days, 99.9% of my trips originated in the narrow part, and it got to the point where the water was so low, I don't have many guests that want to help me push, pull, and drag the boat across mud flats. I call those humps because they're hard to get over.
Yeah.
So I started launching out of the marina. But when we be on our way back, and my favorite time to go is the afternoon, because as we go out there, as the sun sets, the world comes alive around us.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have a good sunset, and you can see the panorama you can have. And so we'd be headed out at dusk, and that's when the beaver come out. They're mostly nocturnal, and I love watching beaver. They're just a very family-oriented, benevolent creature, and people have no idea the amount of empathy and intelligence. Wild, I don't care if it's a duck, a dog, a deer, or a cow. Animals are a lot more intelligent than people give them credit for. But we'd be coming down these tributaries by electric, looking for beaver and this and that. And in the old days, there were more than there are now. And sometimes the beaver would slap so close to the boat to get my guests wet, and it'd scare the crap out of them.
Really?
Yes. And what's the matter? Oh, we thought you were just joking. Why would I BS you about seeing beaver? But we would get down to this place called the Hayden, and I hope to get you out there next time up in the narrow part. But we get out there, and there's like 3 waterways coming together, and I do like 4 or 5 360s in this little boat. Then I'd ask my guests, okay, which way back? And I'd go the way they'd tell me. And then after about 5-10 minutes, as long as everything was going good, I'd say, okay, you ready to go back now? Well, I thought we were. And I said, no, we were going back the way you told me to go. So it is amazing. Like this big, huge moon we've had. You get out there on a night with a big moon, and it's so bright you need sunglasses. It's just amazing.
Do you do night trips?
No. You got to be here to see the answer.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'll just say that it is spectacular after dark. We don't specifically sell them, but sometimes things happen and we wind up out there later. And
well, I was gonna say, when you were talking about dusk and the sunset, like that sounds rad. That sounds like awesome. We went in the morning, and it was still super, super cool. So people, if you can only go in the morning, do it to it. But like going in the evening sounds like spectacular, especially during the summer, like when everything is like the trees are full and everything like that.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And the vegetation, the foliage absorbs the sound. And like we were talking about earlier, going out in the swamp, depending on which way the wind's blowing, is one of the few places I've ever been in my life where you can be so close to the city and hear nothing but wildlife. So I live for that. So when I ask my guests for an afternoon trip, what time do you want to be back? And they say tomorrow, I say, how much did you bring to drink? Because I live for this. I live for this. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not much of a reader, but I heard Wally Bronner wrote a book about, Christmas Wonderland. And he said, I never worked a day in my life because I love what I do. I've busted my butt my whole life, but now I love what I do. People pay me to do what I love. This is my 30th year of doing it professionally, and I'm freaking giddy. My wife's not. She's ready to retire, and I don't make enough money. That's where you come in, hopefully. But anyways, I'm giddy. I mean, I'm not – it's hard for me. Like when I took you out, I have to get up really early. Logistics kills me. I live an hour south of here now, but this is still home. But still – I live for it, and standing there, sadly, a lot of people don't go, and I'm not going to encourage them to go at 7 where you want to go at 8, but I'm standing there on the marina waiting for my guests. I like to get there early and be all set up so they don't catch me working. But, the beaver are swimming by, and like today I stopped there to give a donut to Mel and Buttercrust Bakery, folks.
Yeah.
Get them num-nums.
Yeah, this is my first Buttercrust Bakery num-num, and it is amazing. So cheers to you, Will.
I was running early, so I stopped, and they were literally, the box was warm from these donuts.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyways, but I have to get up early, but in the afternoon trips, it's just surreal. And, we stay out there, and with a standard 3-hour wide park tour, there's a huge, I call it the wide park because it looks like a lake, but you've got this huge vista of the sun going down, and the wildlife, the sandhill cranes are coming in, and you can hear the different things talking back and forth. And, and then, like when the sheephead spawn, it took me years, but the sheephead spawn late May, early June, somewhere in there, and freshwater drum. And so I'd be out there at night, and it'd be really quiet, and you'd hear this groaning coming from the bottom of the boat. It sounded like Mr. Limpet. You remember Mr. Limpet?
No.
Woo! Don Knotts played a fish. He got reincarnated as a fish, and he helped save the battleships in World War II, and he has this thrum, they call it. He's woo! So we're out in the swamp, and we hear this groaning coming through the bottom of the boat, this wong, wong, wong. And I'm, what? And I've heard this for years, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Is it frogs stuck to the bottom of the boat? Yeah. What? It's freshwater drums spawning. They have 2 round bones in their heads that they rub together. So when it's really quiet, you can hear this groaning coming through the bottom of the boat.
Oh,
it's really eerie. And so,
wow.
like, if I am running by electric motor, the fish will actually swim into my electric motor propeller, thinking they're swimming upstream to spawn. But when they're spawning, you'll have these little pods of fish, and these are pretty big fish, 12 to 18 inches or so. These pods of fish, like 3 feet wide or so, and it just looks like the water's alive where they're spawning, and it'll be all around us. The amount of life supported in the rivers is amazing. Wow. And the how far it has come just in my lifetime is amazing. And I try not to touch on politics and stuff, but we've gone backwards. But anyways, the walleye started running 30, 35 years ago. They've spotted sturgeon swimming as far up as Midland on the Shiawassee, which is a huge deal.
Yeah.
They actually plant them now. I'm not a fisherman. I know where the honey holes are, but that's not my gig. But it is amazing how much life is out there. Fish, animals, mammals, endangered species. It's just amazing.
I can't get over how many eagles we saw. Like if you are like me and you love them, you need to go. You just need to go because who doesn't lose their brain when you're driving in the car and you see a bald eagle randomly, like, oh my God, there's a bald eagle. Now multiply that by 15. Now that's not a guarantee you're going to see 15, but you're going to see a lot. And it was really, really incredible.
If we don't see 6 to 10, I blame it on you and say you're not living right. And we saw 4 or 5 nests in that little short standard 3-hour trip. And that's the thing is, I don't want to, but they're in some places they're on their way to being a nuisance bird. There's so many of them, but it never gets old. Saw a couple of golden eagles this spring. They've got American white pelicans out there. If you've never seen a pelican in Michigan, it's awesome, and they're huge birds, and it's just I am not a birding expert. I've been doing this a long time, and I do a lot of learning from my guests. I call great blue herons pterodactyls, but yeah, if we don't see 6 to 10 eagles, I blame it on you guys. And if you've seen eagles, there's lots of other stuff to see.
And I just can't get over how, like, you could walk to the marina from here and experience and see all of that. Deer and eagles and sandhill cranes and blue herons and fish and nature. And I think here in this area we have this idea that we have to go to the UP to see that kind of nature, or we have to go to the UP to not hear the city or a thing. And that's not true. It's not true. You hop in a boat, go on an adventure trip, and you can see all of that in an afternoon or in an evening, and you don't even have to leave this area. You don't have to hop in the car in a 3-hour trip, and then, like, you can literally just hop in a boat and go see it today.
That's the beauty, and that's why I was so lucky to have my stepdad Don in my life. He worked at Gray Iron, and he worked in the Cupelo department. It was a nasty, dirty, dangerous job. But he didn't care. It didn't matter if we had $1 or $200 in our pocket. I'd say, "Hey, Don, you want to go Johnny Panthering?" And he'd say, "Cat got an ass." And we throw that little bitty 14-foot boat in the back of his pickup. Down the road we go. And, it was my salvation. It was either my church or my playground. And it is such a valuable resource. Mm-hmm. And I live for clean flowing water. So where I grew up is flat, muddy, and lazy, Saginaw, Michigan. But there's so much beauty. I know the mountains of New Hampshire, like I know the swamps of Saginaw. That's my other playground. But I love it out there. It is such, for me, hearing the wind through the trees, that like recharges my batteries. Just like, so yeah, again, don't tell anybody. But what an amazing resource we have in our area.
Yeah. Yeah. What an amazing resource. But then I also, like, you are an amazing resource because you're, and pardon me if this is incorrect, you're the only person taking people out on guided tours.
As far as I know, there's been a couple that have come and gone. There's maybe a couple academic operations. Yeah.
But you're the only one who's been doing it for 30 straight years. You're the only one who's been doing it for 30 years, doing this and taking people out and knowing the swamps, knowing the river like you do. And so you're also a fantastic resource because I don't know how to drive a boat. I don't know anything about nature. Had it not been for you, I would not have had that experience. And so that's my encouragement to anybody that watching this or listening to this. If you live in the city of Saginaw, if you live in Bay City, if you live in Midland, you gotta go. You gotta go because it's gonna show you a completely different perspective of the place that you live in. Like, you live here, and I think we almost have a responsibility to know this part of where we live. So if people are listening to this, how do they go about checking out more information? Where do they go, social media or website wise, so that they can reserve a trip?
Well, we have a Johnny Panther Quest page on Facebook. I know that's a swear word, but it's easy for me to keep fresh.
Yeah.
We just built a new website, www.johnnypantherquest.com, or because that's a lot of typing and I hate typing, it's also www.jpqat.com. Okay. And there's a blog attached to it too.
Oh, cool.
Now, if there's too much information in the blog, it's not all about swamp tours. It's about life and my thoughts and things like that. But you can get a good feel for with whom you're dealing on our website. It details each one of our offerings. And we do other stuff, but you can call me or text me on my cell. Might take me a while to respond. And after 3 texts, I want to call you because that's too much typing.
Yeah.
But again, all my trips are by reservation. The swamp tours up through the Shiawassee Flats, they start at $240. That's either cash or check. I've got a Venmo account now. Ooh, so I've got two installments in there.
Yeah.
But we do have a reservation system on our website. But honestly, it costs you more money and it costs me money too. So you're better in dealing direct. Call me, text me, email me. Logistics kills me, so I need at least 24 hours notice. I normally ask for a $50 deposit to reserve your date. I'm here. My tag is eliminate stress, get out of the mainstream, and go on a quest. Yeah. So if the weather's funky the day we're supposed to go, I'm going to call you the night before. We run with a 50% chance of rain or less. In the event we get weathered out, I'll give you the option to refund or reschedule. If you don't mind a shower, you'll see more stuff. If we go out when it's raining, I don't want to go out there when it's pouring and going sideways. No way when there's lightning flying out of the sky. But if it's a shower, it stirs things up. It makes the air sweet, and we see more stuff. The crappier the day, the more you're going to see.
Oh, I like that.
It's true. It's true, but not many people want to put a snowmobile suit on, except for maybe somebody like Phil Ike. Yeah. and those, when I saw those shoes you showed up in for as cold as it was, I'm like, oh no, he's going to freeze his ass off.
Yeah. I was doing okay up until like the way back. We were going into the wind, and I was like, okay, it's getting a little bit chilly. But before I let you go, Will, there's a word that you used the first time that we talked about 4 years ago, and then it came up again in the boat was tranquilitude.
That's it. That's a Willism.
Yeah. Tell me about tranquilitude.
Tranquilitude is a combination of tranquility and solitude. And like I said, our tag is get out of the mainstream, go on a quest. My mission is to get people away from people. And a lot of times in the smaller boat, we'll run by electric motor for an hour, however long, and I call that the stealth mode. But when you go out into the flats, that is tranquilitude. You can get away from people, and you can be absorbed by nature. And there's a lot of power and energy in that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of good things in it. And life has got a lot of stuff coming at us, and I'll tell you that swamp has saved my life more than once. And my mission is to make people feel better when they got out of the boat than when they got there.
Amazing. Well, I definitely felt better getting out of the boat than when I got there. Will, I want to thank you so much for the conversation, but then also just this opportunity that you're giving people. Like you are the person to give people this experience, and you can't get it anywhere else. So people, check out JohnnyPantherQuest.com, book a trip. You got to do it. This is the summer. Will, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I live for this stuff.
Awesome. You're awesome.
Oh, you say that to all the interviews.
That's not true.